Welcome to the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by GrowthExpertz. You are in store for a chat about funding, marketing, startups, and all things growth.
All right, everybody. Hello and welcome back to the Funded Now What podcast. My name is Andrew Lee Miller. I'm your host. And today I'm excited because I think we're on episode 25 and I have the first ever, as far as I know, restaurateur turned AI startup founder. Matt Wampler has just raised $3.8 million to transform the restaurant industry in a really unique way with an AI-powered forecasting predictive analytics solution. If you have ever met anybody in the restaurant industry, you know it's pretty much one of the most stressful things trying to guess what you need for next week and to stay open. And I loved on your website, Matt, it was like, have more good days, guaranteed more good days, because the days when you run out of stuff, we've all been to our favorite restaurant before and the pho is out or something. That's a personal stress point of my life when the old Vietnamese family didn't make enough for the demand. And so Matt's technology, from what I understand, helps companies and restaurants predict what they need when they need it so that they never have to miss out on revenue. Is that an accurate description, Matt?
Yeah, Andrew, first off, thanks for having me. And yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. For most restaurateurs, it's a thankless job where they put the key in the door in the morning and they just wait to get sucker punched in the gut from the inevitable curveball. So if we can get them set up with the right food and the right staff ahead of time, more days go right.
Absolutely. And the number one most exciting thing besides how much money you're able to raise is you were a restaurateur before this. This might be the greatest leap and jump to AI tech founder I've ever seen. Obviously, you knew the product or the problem, better than anybody else. But how did you make that jump and how were you able to raise so much money for this?
Let me say this. Restaurant people are the most resourceful, hardest working, will find a solution to any problem on the fly. And I actually can't think of a much better skill set than going into early stage startups where it is always off the rails and you're always trying to figure out, how do I address this new unique problem? So yeah, a lot of the things I learned on the floor of the restaurant have really paid dividends.
That makes sense. I mean, I often get flack from marketers that are at bigger tech companies making way more money than me. They're like, why would you deal with these little companies? Because you get addicted to the stress and you're either good at it or not. And I also thrive in that, dopamine release of constantly solving different problems every day. So it makes sense. I mean, I have restaurateurs in my family, multi-generations, and I do see how it's a skill that makes almost everything else in life easier. I just visited my cousin who's now a realtor after being born and grown up in a multi-generational restaurant. And I was asking him how it was. And he was like, this is a walk in the park. And I'm running past every other realtor because it's not a 19-hour day. Even if it's a 12-hour day, it's easier. And so that does make sense. But still, from serving, what kind of food did you have at your restaurant?
I was a Jimmy John's franchisee, so restaurateur is a strong word. I was slinging sandwiches and working the meat slicer.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Same as my cousin, pretty much. He was Coney's, and working on the grill himself. But that's a big gap from that to AI founder. How did you even have the confidence to get something like this built?
Well, the confidence wasn't an issue. For whatever reason. I mean, I started off in the industry at 21, taking over a failed Jimmy John's franchise that no one wanted to buy. And the guy needed to get out of the lease and, out of the personal guarantees. And so, I got thrown into the thick of it at a really young age. And, we turned it around and we opened up more locations. And, so that part of it, the confidence, I'd been through hell on the restaurant side. That wasn't what scared me. I would say, how did we actually get here? Two things. One, you find and surround yourself with great people. My co-founder, Osa, this is his third venture. He's built highly scalable, technology solutions for, the Fortune 15 companies.
Wow.
He brings that technology startup side. But then, the other part of it is it's the river you jump in it. So this was a problem, a real problem. We weren't just creating tech for tech's sake. And when you jump into the right river with the right solution, you can screw up a lot of things and still get to the place you want to be. And, I think we've been incredibly successful, but, a lot of that's in spite of ourselves.
Fair. If you know you're solving a problem better than anybody else, you just figure out a way to swim in that river, I think. And so I love that. But still, it's an incredible jump and into that river. And I want to make sure I give you mad props on that because, but it makes sense what you're saying. So, okay. Have you ever raised funding before? Did you have to raise funding for the Jimmy Johns?
No, I didn't. This is the first time I've ever raised funding.
Okay. Amazing. Well, it's definitely not a very easy time. Purses are tightening up. I know this was a little few months ago, but how were you able to do that? What did you learn along the way in that river when you were swimming upstream?
Yeah, so everyone says it's a rough time to raise capital. Well, we've only known this time. It's only ever been hard for us. In some ways, I'm really happy that we never got a easy round, and so we know how painful it was. This has just been the status quo for us. But yeah, no, it was a huge learning curve. Venture capitalists speak a certain way. I would say the biggest thing I learned is, they're here to get very specific information, especially like in first calls. Mm-hmm. Not giving a soliloquy or a monologue on your motivation. They just want to know, hey, you came from the industry, you felt the pain. Great. That was what I needed to know. Exactly. The market's really big. Shortening your answers so that you get to the heart of what they want to know in as quick amount of time as possible. That's
really good advice. How many calls did it take, do you think? And how long of a process was it for you to raise this?
Well, look, it's a never-ending process. So the lead investor, Closed Loop Partners out of New York, love the firm. We met with them for the first time 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
So you often hear people say that they don't invest in, dots, they invest in lines. And that line is the conversations you're having over time and building that relationship. Because at the end of the day, it's hard to validate early startups.
Right.
They have to trust and believe you. And that comes from building a real relationship on a personal level. I mean, I always say this. When's the last, we expect investors to just reach out and say, hey, I saw you raised a round, congratulations, and say good things to us. But how often do you see an investor that you'd like to have invested in you, have something good happen and reach out just to say,
never.
By the way, congratulations, guys. That's building a real relationship with somebody.
Yeah. No, it's usually the other way around. The ones that reach out to you, you might not really want, but you'll get some learning from meeting with them, I think. And I mean, you have more experience than me. I'm just the marketing guy that's on the calls sometimes. And so the ones that you go after, the ones you really want are the ones that you go after, I think. But,
well, only one of us on this call has had multiple successful exits in the startup space. So,
been a part of them. I wasn't the swimming in the river alone, but like you, but okay, well, that's really, really interesting. I think, now you've got the funding. Well, one more question there before we go into the marketing juice of this call, which I'm really excited about because I think it's really easy to grow this company. But what did you, I forgot my train of thought there. It never happens. Maybe only second time ever. How far along were you guys? That often makes it a little bit easier. You mentioned like 2.5 years ago, you started talking to the first VC. I know the company's like 2 or 3 years old. Like before you decided to raise funding, you just bootstrapped this yourself and got to your first customers. Did you pay to build the product? Like a lot of AI startups raise a seed round like very early, like product's not even fully ready yet. How did that work for you guys?
I think that we followed a very stereotypical path for startups. We raised friends and family on a safe note. We then started to get some angel investors and a few institutions that backed us, again, on safe notes. And that was very iterative over the first, 2 years. And then this was our first real equity round.
Wow. That is, shout out to the friends and family. Like if my cousin came around after his 20-some years of slinging conies and was like, I'm going to start an AI startup. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not giving you money. So that's shout out to them. That's all it takes is a really good friends and family round to get something built. And Osa, your co-founder, built this, or did you have to outsource the development? Or you don't have to answer.
We built it all internally. It was Osa and I at the beginning, just building the MVP. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Well, amazing. All right. Now we get to where we're at today. We've got some money in the bank. I'm sure you're growing the team. What's the marketing like? Are you and Osa also doing all the marketing yourself, or what's that look like?
So we have a marketing person, but she is, unfortunately for us, but fortunate for her, she's getting her MBA at Northwestern starting this fall. So we are now going to be needing to find a new marketing person.
That is unbelievable timing that I did not plan. So I literally just, I and Irfana on my team just reach out to startups that I think are cool. Did not look at if you have a marketing person, but that's perfect segue. And you also told me when we weren't recording, something else happened. So you had someone else lined up to fill that role, right?
Yes, we did. And of course it fell apart at the 11th.
It fell apart. So exciting because, so I'm going to sell you for a second, but a lot of people that listen to the podcast already know this. I've spent 20 years only doing one thing, literally helping founders exactly like you as the first marketing hire. I started the first 10 years as a full-time head of marketing, one company at a time, because that's all I thought I could do. And then, as you mentioned earlier, drove exit after exit without having to be around for a long time, no successive rounds of funding, and very marketing-driven exits almost every single time. And I thought after the last one, which didn't pay me very much and was like 100% based on the success of what I was doing, I thought, you know what, fuck this, I'm going to be a consultant. And so I just started traveling around the world and working directly with, whatever company was okay with remote work. This is 10 years ago. That's how GrowthExpertz started. And over the last 5 years, it's really moved into this fractional thing that is really replacing the need for full-time hires. So, $3.8 million sounds like a lot. You probably need to build out engineering teams. You need to keep the runway going. I don't really recommend hiring a full-time marketer at your stage. And I have written a book and done other public speaking, and now it's a number one trend. I mean, McKinsey talks about it, EY, Harvard, all these places are talking about as fractional consultants being the way that startups reduce their failure rate by bringing in someone with 20 years experience on marketing, sales, BD, all the things that you probably can talk to real restaurant owners better than anyone else. So you might not need a salesperson, but you need someone to fill up your calendar with meetings with those restaurant owners. And then eventually to be able to scale, you can't meet with 10,000.
I'm looking forward to the conversation. This is top of mind for me. And Andrew, I'm not holding back because I'm not a big fan of outsourcing things or fractional anything. So you've got a tough crowd. I can't wait to see.
Well, no, we're not going to have the whole conversation selling you on that. I want to actually create value for you and tell you what you should do regardless if you hire full-time or not. But it is interesting that the full-time hire fell apart because a lot of companies are relying on, you can Google it after, on fractional stuff to do basically this. As instead of paying full-time salary for someone, which is often someone from a big logo that your VCs recommend, that actually doesn't come from exactly the right scenario because they need to actually be able to roll their sleeves up and do a bunch of shit. It's early stage startups are all about wearing multiple hats, putting in extra hours. It's not a 9-to-5 job. And oftentimes that first marketer, if they're director or senior level, is expecting something like that. And then that turns out to be a really costly misfire. The second thing that early stage startups do, which might be the person that's going back to college right now, is get a really junior person in that doesn't cost a lot, but needs a lot of management, doesn't really have the skills, but are willing to be really hungry and work. And so the fractional thing is this new, and then the other option is wasting a ton of money on agencies. GrowthExpertz has always been a full stack agency. So you just work with us and then we break our ass for the companies that we work with, which is not a great revenue model, but it works for the company and that we wins and that's, you'll make enough. And so, the fractional thing is you get a junior person and then a senior person part-time over the top. That's still only working with a few companies. So they're fully committed. Anyway, pitch over, but it's an interesting thing. And I don't bring it up enough on any of the podcasts because it's not 100% relevant, but it is for you. The reason why, the things you need to focus on now, and I'm not going to hold back either, are one, finalizing your marketing foundation. So with a full-time C-level marketer, they're really good and experienced at like moving quick through. You got a great brand. Like I said, I'm not going to hold back. I do not like the name. Obviously, I get clear cost of goods sold. But if I just looked at that URL, Matt, I thought, oh, COGS, like it's some it's some, software for CNC machines, which was a previous guest on the show. Shout out to my buddy from Switzerland. Forgot his name, but Pierre. So Pascal, sorry. So the name really matters. And I know from working with businesses that reach out to restaurants, if the word restaurant's in the URL, you're going to have like a 5x better open rate and response rate on that. And I actually checked, restaurantclear.com is $1,300 for the URL. So, I know you've been around for a while, but
no, by the way, this has actually been an ongoing conversation. So we chose the name at one point, and the domain was available.
Of course.
Makes sense. Cost of goods sold for restaurants is food costs. And so how do we provide clarity on their food costs? Made sense at the time. It makes less and less sense every quarter. My co-founder hates the name as well. And then you run into the marketing side of it where it's like, okay, we really built a really good SEO engine. We've really got some name brand recognition. That's At awesome. What point do you, are you willing to treat that as a sunk cost and move into something else?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the answer is as soon as possible before you're a $1 billion brand. And so I think you can run a test as well to prove to yourself. So you can buy that $1,300 URL, make a little landing page, do outreach, and if you get ridiculously better response rates, then you kill the old one off. And
so our current strategy is this, and I'm curious your thoughts.
Sure.
Is we are going to move to product line names, right? This is your restaurant co-pilot powered by ClearCOGS, or your predictive, restaurant prep powered by ClearCOGS.
I love that. I think that one, your revenue is going to go up a lot. Your ability to upsell customers to like a top tier plan that includes everything. And also from a marketing customer acquisition point of view, you figure out which feature set or which thing is really the wedge that gets you into a restaurant easier when it's separated like that. When you're one platform that does everything, you have to do a lot of sales calls to see the light bulbs consistently go off in a pattern in people's eyes. Whereas if it's a different thing, and from an SEO perspective too, you can then optimize all those feature landing pages, those different product lines for that exact problem. But it really depends on like pricing and, I'd have to know a lot more about the company and really what is resonating most with customers. How many customers do you have? Are you comfortable to share that?
Yeah, we're at a little over 100 brands across 4 countries, ranging from, regional barbecue chains to multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies.
Wow. That's a lot of data. And so I would use some AI and predictive stuff on that to figure out what is the, also you can make tooltips and pop-ups that give like thumbs up, thumbs down on each thing. And then you can aggregate all that data from customers. 100's enough for me. And people really love these different things. Let's productize these features and make them into individual things and go off with that. And that'll be probably the thing that would close the most. So that makes sense. I think that actually is better than probably losing any SEO juice, to be honest, because it doesn't matter if the product line then has the word restaurant in it, then you're good to go. I think from that point of view, because that's what's reaching out. It's powered by ClearCOGS, and then you don't lose any brand awareness. But going back to what I said, so first thing is finalizing that marketing foundation. So it's not just branding, it's messaging, which also is pretty good for you guys. It's your SEO, it's your social media strategy, it's your analytics. I mean, the amount of times companies raise money without having a tight ship on all of that is a lot. And then the second thing is going to market through organic strategies. And so, a good marketer is going to hit and not just be like, oh, we've got a lot of money. We raised a lot of money. Let's spend a ton of money on paid user acquisition. I hate hearing that. I hate paid advertising agencies. Don't work with them. You want to figure out what messaging, what features, what product lines, what type of content, what size restaurant, what position in the company, what platform really resonates and closes meetings for you. And then with that knowledge, then we scale up to paid user acquisition. Then we know exactly what to say, where to say it, who to say it to. And in those 3 sections, if you work with someone fractionally through that, not only do we go faster, I think, because consultants are like worried about always losing the gig, as opposed to someone who a full-time hire takes like a month to just learn the industry. And so go ahead.
Yeah. So Andrew, here's what I'd love to know. There's a lot of different ways to generate sales. There seems to be some organizations, especially B2B, larger commercial deals, that it's a sales-based organization. Mm-hmm. We're more of a sales-based organization, account-based marketing, trade shows, working on larger deals with bigger brands. Yeah. Marketing helps facilitate that, helps lubricate, deals to get through the process, but is not necessarily generating top of the funnel, if you will.
So that's because of your target. So like I said, a decade ago, I launched a Yelp copy in a different country, targeting restaurants first. And what we found was restaurant owners are hard to reach. And so that's why you think that you have to go do these things and be at those. So the conferences, the face-to-face stuff, regardless of industry, it's good for the really big opportunities. You're not going to reach out to 1,000-unit restaurant via LinkedIn and really get a quick, maybe you could get a quick response from somebody as opposed to spending the money, going to a conference, speaking at a conference is what you really should be doing. There's not a lot of tech innovation in the space compared to other places where AI is in. So you should be able to get opportunities to speak at those. But the future of AI for the restaurant industry should be you keynoting that conference or that talk. But we'll talk about that later.
By the way, if you happen to be in Chicago, the QSR Summit, I will be speaking and will be the whatever they call it, MC.
Oh, interesting. I will have to introduce you to my friend Prakash. I was mentioned to you before we started recording. My best friend and former co-founder of the first thing we did in college is one of QSR's QSR magazine's 40 under 40. Now he's 40, and often a speaker at those conferences around the country as well. And so you should definitely
get a free ticket. I'll hook him up with a ticket.
Oh, I'm sure I would be surprised if he's not speaking also. But like I mentioned to you before we started recording, he brought tech very early to his restaurants. And, COVID didn't even affect him at all because he already had the curbside ordering, the touchless ordering interface and blah, blah, blah. And so he's super innovative guy and definitely need to introduce you to him. But back to the question, yes, you want to keep the sales-led and founder-led sales things going. I think you get bigger deals that way majority of the time, but you also need your self-service. I mean, is it a possible self-service platform? Can someone sign up on the website and become they need to meet with you and get onboarded or what?
So we sell on the enterprise side. No, they can't.
Okay.
We're working on a productized version for the independent restaurant. We just launched on Toast and we're on the marketplace with a single click deploy solution. But that's in its infancy. Yeah. I think the question I had really is, if you are a sales-based organization, how does that change what you're looking for in either a marketing person or just the core functioning of marketing?
Okay. 2 parts there. One, I don't want to discount the ability for marketing to generate top of funnel. And so what I was going to say really worked when I was targeting restaurants is social media outreach. Your small to medium restaurants are still managed on social media by either a marketer who's directly reports to the founder and owner of the restaurant chain or otherwise, or the owner themselves. And so there are software tools to automate outreach the second thing, and we can go deeper on this strategy. The second growth hacking strategy I would focus on to change your focus on, or your belief that marketing can't do top of funnel, is you can scrape Google Maps and get all the restaurants' direct address, email address, website, phone number. And now there are AI calling tools that are really good. We had one on the podcast. I think the episode will be live in like a week or two. Shout out to Hey Libby. But there are direct mail tools. So you can take that list of addresses. I mean, there's probably, you want to maybe drill it down more than just any restaurant, but you can send out mailers to those restaurants that will often get to the right person as well. And then obviously the emails, you can do an email campaign. So I think hitting the restaurants in like old school offline ways does work really well for that industry. And then the social media outreach. So doing all those
Let's
things.
go into the social media outreach. So I'm actually curious about what you said. So by the way, you come from restaurants. Like I was not on LinkedIn.
No,
didn't do any of that. I think I maybe had 800 connections when I started the company. I think I have like 15,000 now.
Wow.
We've really leaned into social media.
Good for you, man.
LinkedIn.
Did you have long hair before the before the restaurant? I mean, before the company? This is the new, Matt Wampler, the funded CEO hairdo.
I think so. And now I've got a 6 and 8 year old daughter, and they've decided my hair needs to stay. So
amazing. Well, congrats for you doing both of those things at the same time. The dad and founder stuff is incredible. Okay, so
where I was going with this though is on the outreach. So
yeah,
it's funny when somebody sends a connection request to me. If they write a bunch of words, I almost never accept it because
100%.
Legitimately just means like that's a person that took some time. They're going to send me more words every day and just annoy the hell out of me.
You're too busy for that shit.
I find the automated outreach to be incredibly, it's detrimental. If you send me an automated outreach, the longer I'm even more upset. Like, you can see that that's what it is, and it almost feels disrespectful. Even worse when they try and do the like conversation. What's your challenge right now? Open-ended questions. Like, these are annoyances. Does that hurt the brand at all by doing this long term?
Yes. So a bunch to unpack there. We might go over a little bit on time just so hopefully you got it, because I'm just going to create some gold for you here. First thing I see, red flag in what you mentioned, is founders cannot make marketing decisions based on their own personal preferences. So you hate getting the messages doesn't mean that a restaurateur who's fucking pissed that they keep buying too little or too much of the stuff that they need for the restaurant won't be absolutely overjoyed to get a message from you solving all their problems. The basis of all of our aggressiveness in marketing comes from how much we really believe we're helping people. And I've never worked on anything I didn't think is helping people, because that's the secret sauce of marketing. And so people that are reaching out to you with bullshit that's not valuable for you is just spam. But I always say, and I think I coined this term, there's no such thing as targeted spam. If I hit a restaurant owner with a message about ClearCOGS and how it's going to make XYZ improvement in their life, and even if they're like, oh, I can see this is automated, which they're not, which I'll get into in a second, they're not going to know. Because they're not sophisticated tech people, majority, no offense to the restaurateurs like Prakash and yourself that know how to AI works and stuff. But most of them are the people that respond going, oh my God, Andrew, that's so amazing. The third piece there is in the messaging. I use a lot of slang. I can tell you talk just like me, and it would be a one-line message, not longer than that. It's not a question either. Maybe it is, but it's usually like something like, hey, are you sick of doing this? Are you sick of buying too much or not buying enough? If so, let me know. I've got a tool that you might be interested in, or something like that. And even if they go, no, I'm not, it's not a serious thing for me. Well, how much money are you wasting? Or the next thing to say, like there's a lever that you ask, like, oh, well, how many days have you run out of products over the last month? And then they'll go, like, a lot. Why? Well, we've got this tool. You can't just lead in with, I'm the founder of this AI startup. Their eyes are going to glaze over. And so you have to finagle it in with a word. I like using the word suck. I like using the word badass. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I have automation on LinkedIn that makes me a lot of money reaching out to AI founders specifically, saying, I know, AI engineering focused founders. And I'm like, engineers usually suck at marketing. If that's you, let's chat. And then they're just like booking meetings like crazy because they're like, yeah, we suck at this. So, and I had a meeting last week with the founder of monster.com, if you're old enough to remember that. And he was like, I'll never respond to messaging, but yours was really different because you said badass. You're a badass in it. And I've got the background to back up the word badass, I think. And so, we fake it till we make it with marketing. And so, it's different on LinkedIn. It's way overdone. A lot less people are automating messages on social media, and a lot less, almost none would be automating on social media to restaurateurs. So, and then the bigger restaurants with the social media marketer, I find even more success there because the social media marketer is checking every message, even if it's spam, and they're surfacing anything that might be valuable to the decision maker on their like daily or weekly catch-ups. And so you often get a champion from that person that's like, hey, I think this thing might actually really help us, but can you check it out? So there's no reason to not test that. A tool that I recommend for you or your marketer, whoever, is Phantom Buster with a PH. So it's a little technical, but it's Osa can also build this probably. If you've built your fucking AI startup, he would listen to this and be like, I can make that this weekend, Matt. Don't worry about it. So
he's got other things to build. We need to keep him focused on his lane.
Fair. And this is like a $50 a month tool, and you can automate on Instagram, Twitter. I mean, Facebook and Instagram are the only things that matter to restaurateurs. So the other ones won't matter as much. I'm not sure if you can still do stuff on Facebook. Like, I don't know, but definitely Instagram will be really big, and you can just use the word restaurant to target anybody that says, restaurant, or if there's an address or a zip code in it, then, word restaurant. Anyway, so you can scrape. It's long. I don't want to get into how to use it all the way. There's videos online, but that I think would be worth testing. The second part, going back to what you said about what should a marketer that you hire focus on? I mean, I don't think it's the right time to hire a full-time marketer because of what I said. And also, like you mentioning that means even more. So a lot of times founders are like, oh, we have to have a head of marketing because you don't want to focus on it. You need to be freed up to go and focus on getting those big accounts, going to those conferences, raising the next round, operations, product, all the other things. And so I get the impetus to hire someone full-time, but if the consensus is that they're not going to be driving a lot of ROI, then that's even more reason to be potentially using someone fractionally. So, but you could, again, like a younger person can be handling that automation thing that I mentioned. I think the growth hacking, scraping Google Maps thing is also a really good idea. Your SEO side, there's a lot of content that you want to be creating. Top AI tools for restaurants is definitely something that some restaurateurs are going to be searching. There's paid advertising that could come into the mix. It's, paid advertising can look like display or search, really, between the two. So there's also influencer marketing. There are restaurant influencers. I knew a guy in California. I can't remember what he did specifically, but he was a restaurant owner influencer. He talks about, I think I was on his
chef from Cali Barbecue.
I think it's that guy. So I was on his podcast many years ago. Yeah, it is that guy in SoCal. Yeah, he's like Persian or Arab or something. I remember I was on his podcast, and I just remember thinking, wow, there's an influencer for everything. And so that guy, are you already working with him? Is that how you know him?
He's now producing my podcast.
There you go. Nice. That's amazing. Well, shout out to him.
He's one of my best friends, and like he's a guy that
great guy. Great guy. And he, I think, inspired me to even start this show. I mean, maybe it took me a year to get the balls up to do it. Really not the balls. It's just I don't like doing anything for free anymore as an old, well-paid consultant. So my wife.
Wait, am I getting billed for this?
No. You're worth it. So, anyway, so I think there's a lot of stuff that I talked about there that they can focus on. I think overall, you want that marketer to know as you're interviewing and hiring, my job or your job is to generate ROI as marketing. You tell them, historically, we have been a sales-driven organization. I want you to prove me wrong that marketing is worthless, and you light that fire under their ass, and that's what they need to do. And I just gave you 3 large campaigns that they could focus on. And I guarantee, I'll put all the money on the line that at least one of those produces significant top of line revenue or top of the funnel meetings. You got another question? I can see it.
Yeah, I do. So we're at a transition point right now. I have had a natural inclination, a feel for marketing. I majored in marketing in college. For that's worth. Okay. I like marketing. I like marketing a lot. I like branding. I enjoy this entire aspect of it.
Okay.
When ChatGPT came out, January 2023, we ranked on the first page of Google organically for the search term ChatGPT. Drove 50,000 people to the website.
Holy shit.
Yeah. We average something like 100 people on our website every single day, which for an early stage is pretty good. I think we've got between 500 and 700 search terms that were on the first page of Google for.
That's
We've
cool.
got 5,000 people following the company on LinkedIn. We've got a built-in marketing audience of my connections of 15,000, and it's all growing. We've done all these things that are really good, but it's not systematic at all, right?
Yeah.
It has been spray and pray and like opportunistic. And so I think we fail at a lot of things, specifically converting website visits, but it feels like that's when you need to bring someone in to own the whole thing and really put the structure in place to say, okay, what experiments have we run? What are the results? What are we driving towards? Really to actually formalize it in-house. And maybe whether it's in-house or not, but like that feels like the time to bring somebody in. Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I just don't think they need to be super senior, because the stuff that you mentioned is mostly vanity metrics to me. I don't give a shit about how many social media followers. I don't care if ChatGPT, I know I'm trying to be offensive here at all.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be. I don't care if ChatGPT is a keyword that ranks us, because it's not going to lead to a real customer. It's a short time on site, high bounce accident, and that doesn't matter. What matters to me in your phase is promotion and leads. I want you speaking at those conferences. I want you getting on every restaurant podcast. I want restaurant magazines and newspapers to be writing about you. And then I want to use all that content in our lead gen strategy. And I want to get as many meetings as I can with restaurateurs and then close them and figure out, and then reinvest that money in doing bigger stuff like the conferences and expensive branding exercises. So those
give me the resume of that person. Cause like, I agree. I need somebody that's ready to get their hands dirty still.
That's the junior marketer. And that, again, it just keeps coming back in a circle of me sounding like I'm trying to sell this thing, but I'll give you just an example. I have a client in the AI space that has a full-time marketer based in Ukraine. The dude is a hustler, but needs to be managed and told what to do, and not a ton of creativity on the marketing side. He will handle all of the things that I tell him to do, but we have 1 hour meeting every week. The founders come on that call, and then me and him work together asynchronously to go and get all that stuff done. And in a few short months, we're leveling him up and he's becoming more autonomous. And my goal is to only really work with them for like a year. And then they keep that kid internally. I got another, sometimes they don't have the resources to hire that junior marketer, and I actually just go to universities and hire a fresh graduate. And this person literally starts for 3 months unpaid to be trained by me and build that marketing portfolio. But no one is hungrier than a fresh grad. Like, they'll put in any amount of hours that needs to be put in, but they need to be taught and trained and get up to speed. But so you've got the hunger and you've got the know-how and the insight. So
what you said before, though, which I kind of agree with, kind of disagree with, that
okay.
The founder's preference is not necessarily representative of your core target demographic, right?
Right.
So like your preferences don't really matter in a lot of ways. Well, at the same time, with the junior person, you're driving that train as to this is where we should go. And they're just a hammer. So I do wonder, is that where you view the fractional coming in to say like, no, this is where you need to go, and like then take the junior person and have them actually execute on it?
Absolutely. Yes. And like some clients work a lot more than that 1 hour with the junior, especially we try to find them physically based in Philly or wherever you're at, like near you, so that they can come to the office and be a real part of the team. The whole idea is that person moves up inside of your company long-term and then becomes the director of marketing someday when the organization is much larger and there's a bigger need. But yeah, like I accelerate the learning. And I have an intern that works for me, and she's only 20, and I went out on a limb. She's still a junior in college, but she's a fucking hustler. And these kids get a lot of theory in school. They don't get the execution. And if you have the drive and willpower to execute and learn a lot, now she knows how to do paid ads, SEO, content marketing, social, all the strategies are there. I've got a lot of online courses and everything. It's kind of like just downloading the experience and then curating it to that company because I've been a part of so many projects. But I want to stop selling the fractional thing and go back. Go ahead.
I wanted to go back to the buying of the fractional thing. So the two jobs or functions that I hate hiring for is marketing and sales, because they're both good at selling and positioning.
Right. That's fair.
You're going to convince me of something because you're a great marketer. Does that mean you're going to be good at doing my marketing? I got no idea, but you sound great. So how do you vet out what's a good firm or a good person and who's just good at marketing?
So one is if they're old and have no hair like me and have been around this long, the proof is in the pudding. You cannot fake it this long. And so I have case studies. I have been a part of companies that have exited that are clickable and you can see and you can reach out to the founder. I wrote a book. There's no way I could fake what I've done. And so it's there. If somebody is early enough where you can't prove what they've done by, it's not just like asking for references. Like LinkedIn is a paper trail. So you can go and see the companies they've worked with and who's referred them or who's been there and ask around without even having permission. So I think that makes sense. You also want to have, you mentioned you like marketing. You want to give an exercise. So I do some of the marketing interviewing in my company, obviously because I have the experience, but I have a head of talent who's ex-Amazon, 10 years in the game. And it's funny, I was a lone wolf for so long and then brought this guy on as a co-founder actually, because at the end of that 12 months is when I recommend we do marketing hiring. And then we don't let founders do it on their own anymore. I do it with him because I have been in the trenches working with the company's marketing and know what we need. And then Nick is a hiring expert and knows how to, but even when I didn't have him, this is what I did just to give as much value as possible. I would do 1 30-minute interview asking them everything I didn't, and this is before ChatGPT too, because now you can upload their resume and make how much this is aligned percentage-wise, et cetera, with the channels we need to focus on. But I would look through their resume for a couple key things that I know I want to see. I'll meet with 3 to 5 people only for a role. And then I'll meet once, and then I'll give them a task. And I've never really been a lone wolf hiring on like a super senior person. So it's usually like junior and mid-level. And so it's a little bit less risky, but these college students don't have any experience. So the questions that I'm asking and the things that I'm looking for are passion for the mission, which is rare. But, like if somebody comes on like, I love the restaurant space and my family's this, and okay, they're going to grind.
Hey, we're saving the world. Food waste reduction is directly resulting in lower carbon emissions. That's why
ding, ding, ding. Marketing gold. Marketing gold right there. That's another PR opportunity. Now, this AI startup founder is going to save 1 billion tons of waste from landfills in the next 10 years or something, So mission driven, really hardworking and passionate. Like never said this publicly, but I give them this task and I'm like, take the rest of the week to finish it, no problem. And then just like whenever you get a chance, and then I want to see it in less than by the time I wake up the next day is the reality. Like if they're just so like, Andrew, I couldn't sleep and I did this little report for you. And I'll always say like, don't spend more than an hour on it. But if they spend more than an hour on it, and then I also sometimes on job ads, and Nick has told me recently that this doesn't work anymore, but I still do it. I'll put at the bottom, like, if you really want to stand out, email me or send me a video on social media or something. And it's only like one person that ever does that. And that's the kid. That's the person that'll really like go above and beyond for you. So there's like these little things here. And I wish Nick was on the call to give more insight there. But I think you like marketing, you give them a task, you look for passion, you look for mission-driven alignment. And I also lastly, I like to ask, like, what are your favorite marketing channels? What are the channels that you really think that you're a superstar in? Or like, what do you want to learn the most? Because it's okay if they're not an expert in it yet, but they want to learn it as they go. And you want that to align with the things that I've mentioned that are really important for this company. So lead generation, even on LinkedIn, is important. So I was talking about automating social media, and I'm going to let you go right after this. I know we went over.
I have one more question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm assuming that you're able to do what you do on a fractional basis because marketing and the fundamental principles of marketing work across different industries. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's right.
So when you're selecting a marketing person, how much industry expertise is that a value? Or is great marketing semi-universal? So choose the best marketer, not necessarily the one with the industry expertise.
That's an awesome question because especially restaurant people think it's the most important thing. You're not a restaurant. You are an AI B2B SaaS company. And so that's the experience that you want. If they had a restaurant, like I said, mission driven would be good. Like if there's somebody, I guess the mission is to keep stuff out of the landfill. That's pretty cool too. But you don't want like a hippy dippy, like let's save the whale. Like, that's not the most important thing to this. The most important thing is I come from a family of small business owners, and this is a product that is going to help put food on the table for tens of millions of families around the world that are, my friend Prakash is co-founder of his restaurant, which is called Balance Grill in Ohio, 15 years in the game. He's a second generation restaurateur, and his parents had a Chinese buffet as Koreans, a Chinese buffet that literally put him through college. And we've all watched his mom and dad still to this day work their face off. And so that's who I think of with this product. It's like helping those people like maybe retire 5 years earlier. You know what I mean? It's like a life-changing thing. So it's cool if they have that, but not restaurant necessary experience, right? The salesperson, a little bit different, maybe. If they have sold something,
sales is a different thing altogether.
Because if I'm a restaurateur, I want to talk to you. I want someone who's understanding my problem more than just reading a script. But the marketer, not really so, because it's going to be too hard for you to find. Like the SaaS experience is the most important thing, because a SaaS marketer knows, what is unique about this space, and so. That's my answer to that. But the reason why I do what I do fractionally now is because for 7 years or so before that, I was a full stack consultant. And then for 10 years before that, I was a full-time head of marketing of companies that only raised like a couple $1,000,000. So we didn't have a full staff of marketing, and I had to literally learn hand-to-hand combat each marketing channel A to Z, how to hack this, how to do that with no budget, how to do your own PR because we can't pay an agency, how to work with influencers without paying them but supporting them in different ways, blah, 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 blah. And then I wrote that book, it's called the Startup Growth Book, literally to just equip teams that don't have any resources. Never made me any money. Most people that buy the book are in like Nigeria and Algeria and Lebanon and stuff, because that's the places where you need to grow your company with no money. Anyway, so that's why I do fractionally now, is because I've literally touched every industry. I have clients in telecom, clients in the mold detection space, I've touched everything at this point.
Well,
so,
we can all tell that you're a good marketer, and I'm sure you may want to cut this out because I may be saying too much, but the fact that you're looking to work with early stage startups that actually have money, and you found a nice little niche of, by the way, let's go get the ones that were just funded and have a reason to start speaking with them. Start a podcast. That's pretty ingenious, my friend.
Thank you. No, I won't cut this out. I still work with bootstrap startups. I don't publicize it. I do a really low cost coaching thing where there's no execution. I just get on the phone with them once a week and coach them in through those 3 phases that I mentioned. And even still, the seed round, it's dumb to play in this early because there's still a large amount of companies that we do great marketing things for, but they fail because the founder's bad at fundraising. The product team was outsourced, and I'm not able to really. I'm only able to help with product from like a marketing and messaging point of view, like adding more virality to it, pushing people to share at this point, finding that aha moment, changing messaging. So there's still plenty of other reasons why companies fail. So it's definitely not been super lucrative as it would be if I was like, I work with A or B and C round startups to, do X, Y, and Z differently. And then, so anyway, it's more of a passion driven thing for me. And that's why I know that that's what you want to look for when you're hiring, because if somebody is passionate and loves what they do, they will put 110% into it. And then they're probably going to be successful because of that. And so I just like winning. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to move towards more recently funded startups because it's like it's a natural sweet spot. Like it is really working really well, both for us and for them. But my job is to make myself obsolete. If it happens in 6 months, it happens in 6 months. But the goal is 12, obviously, for predictive revenue for us, as well as just really, want to make sure we see things through to the point where it's like a bird that flies without a stint in its wings anymore, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We'll know that you have some alimony payments or some type of financial crisis when the Series C, fundraising podcast comes out, and that becomes the new target audience. But in the meantime, love that you're doing it. Love that you're doing it for us early companies, because we're the ones that need it most and benefit the most.
Dude, thank you so much for that and for being here and for helping all those small businesses and those families, restaurateurs like my cousin and my best friend, who really need the help. And I'm excited to make some intros for you. Where can people find ClearCOGS? And if they're no restaurateur, how can they make a referral to you?
Well, first off, follow us on all of our social media channels, and maybe you'll end up having Andrew's automated messages coming to you. I will try and keep those to a minimum. No, I'm kidding. We don't do any of that. But yeah, follow us on the social media. You can find us on clearcogs.com. If you guys are in the restaurant space, if you're on Toast, go enable plus ClearCOGS. We're right there on the marketplace, single click, no setup, no nothing. Come on this journey with us. And if you're a larger brand that wants to add a couple percentage points to the bottom line, you can schedule a call right on the website.
Amazing. Matt Wampler, thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Thank you, Andrew.
That has been another episode of the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by GrowthExpertz. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you really liked it, please share with other founders and entrepreneurs. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.